Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the announcement of the shortlist for the 31st Gratiaen Prize. My name is Purnima and I will be your host this evening. This year's Gratiaen Prize is taking place at a time that is exciting for writing in Sri Lanka, and we are witnessing a very exciting moment with broader literary conversations and engagements. Sri Lankan authors are now winning recognition and accolades from within and outside the country. As reflected in the long list for this year, we have received a wide breadth of genres and writing styles in this year's pool of entries, covering a gamut of creative work. It is therefore with much anticipation that we await the announcement of the shortlisted writers. So to begin today's event, I would like to invite Orlando Edwards, the Country Director of the British Council Sri Lanka. The British Council has supported the Gratiaen Trust Shortlist announcement event since its inception and is our event partner for this evening. Please warmly invite Orlando.
Thank you, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues. It's lovely to see such a large turnout despite the weather, so thank you very much for braving the rain and making it here today. I'm immensely proud of the British Council's enduring partnership with the Gratiaen Trust, and last year was a special year for us. We celebrated 75 years of diplomatic ties between the UK and Sri Lanka with a bigger, more enhanced arts programme than in previous years, and that included a stronger partnership really with the Gratiaen Trust. So we worked together to bring award-winning writers Monique Roffi and Sita Brahmachari here, and they delivered creative writing workshops for teachers and students of all ages here in Colombo, in Kandy, down in Gaul. And we're thrilled that the next stage of our partnership is involving the UK poet Dr. Anthony Joseph, who will chair the judges, as we will hear, for this year's Gratiaen Prize. Our work with the Gratiaen Trust is highly regarded in the UK, where the growing importance of Sri Lankan literature, the growing importance of the Sri Lankan literary scene on the global stage is increasingly recognised. It's worth noting too, because we can't not talk about the economy, the huge potential of the Sri Lankan book publishing industry. So I did a quick bit of research earlier today just to see what it's worth in the UK, and the market size, it's estimated, of the book publishing industry in the UK is estimated to be almost £7 billion in 2024, and it's projected to grow and grow and grow. And of course, that supports a huge number of jobs across the economy. So here in Sri Lanka, it's very much thanks to the work of the Trust, the Gratiaen Trust, that the literary scene thrives and also will continue to support more jobs across publishing and writing per se. So our work with the Trust is important at a bilateral level, but it's also a leading example of the many and varied innovative projects that the British Council delivers around the world, promoting literature partnerships. I very much hope that this year's Gratiaen Prize will continue to inspire more Sri Lankans to write and to read. Our British Council libraries and digital libraries, of course, are open to all, and we have lots of exciting new stock to tempt new members to our physical libraries. I just want to close on that note by encouraging you all to keep looking out for events and activities on our library events webpage, and we can share details later this evening if you don't know how to sign up. And of course, if you would like to explore our digital library, we currently have a very special offer. You simply need to scan the QR code, which I think is on the pull-up stand over there, and register this for a freemium member access to enjoy a wide range of British Council online resources. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Enjoy this evening, and do please stick around at the end for some refreshments. I look forward to talking to you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Orlando. The John Keels Foundation is the primary sponsor of the Gratiaen Trust. Over the last 5 years, the Trust and John Keels Foundation have forged a strong partnership, which has allowed the Trust to expand its mandate to include workshops, masterclasses, seminars, and host numerous other literary engagements. Our representative from the John Keels Foundation for today, Kamaleen Jayasuriya, is unfortunately held up by two of Sri Lanka's biggest obstacles, 5 o'clock traffic and the rain. But she will be here shortly to speak to all of us a little bit about John Keels Partnership. And until she does, please put your hands together for our co-chairs for the Trust for this year, Nisreen Jafferji and Nafisa Amiruddin.
Good evening, I'm Nisreen Jafferji, and sharing the dais with me today is Nafisa Amiruddin. Together, we co-chair the Gratiaen Trust. It is wonderful to greet you all at this year's Shortlist announcement event, an exciting part of the Gratiaen calendar. A 31-year unbroken history of a prize is no mean feat, and it is a testament to the dedicated voluntary effort to support and promote English creative writing in Sri Lanka.
Last year, we saw a year-long celebration of an important milestone, our 30th anniversary. To mark this event, we had Literary Day in Literary Day in Jaffna, workshops at the universities of Colombo and Ferreira with the acclaimed author Monique Roffey, and a masterclass with award-winning author Romesh Gunasekara. We facilitated the visit of Sita Brahmachari, another award-winning British author, who conducted a series of Children's Day programs for both students and teachers in the A-level group, as well as a masterclass for authors of children's books that focused on imaginative storytelling. We also saw the launch of 2 new innovative programs, the Young Writers Club and the Gratiaen Pods, under which we've already released 2 podcasts with more to come. We acknowledge and deeply appreciate the part played by our primary sponsor, the John Keels Foundation, in partnering with us to achieve our goals. Over the past 5 years, John Keels Foundation has supported the various new projects and literary initiatives implemented by the Trust. Their support has helped us to reach out to writers from across the island through in-person events and online platforms. Thank you, Kamaleen and team. Since the inception of the Gratiaen Prize, the British Council has supported the Shortlist announcement event. This past year, to mark the 75th anniversary of UK-Sri Lanka diplomatic ties, the British Council invited the Trust to partner in a creative literature series which resulted in the enhanced activities of all our projects, especially with the participation of the many British authors who visited Sri Lanka. This initiative also includes the participation of Dr. Anthony Joseph as chair of this year's jury, and we are pleased to announce that Anthony will be present at our main event in June and will conduct a masterclass soon after. Thank you, British Council, for this support. We would also like to acknowledge Marga Institute, our secretariat, the Vijay Group, our media partner, and all the other supporting groups that keep the Gratiaen running through the year, and who have helped create awareness and expand the reach of our programs.
And so now, moving on with the evening, we'd like to present you the Gratiaen long list. Each entry represents not just a story, but a labor of love, a testament to the endless possibilities of language and creativity. A Passing Return by Pasan Jayasinghe is a memoir about coming back to and coming to terms with Sri Lanka. Pasan wrote it to document returning back to the country after a long time away and the new contours of it he discovered in the process. places, people, and politics he felt unfamiliar with and unprepared for. Structured as a series of essays and reflections, A Passing Return grapples with identity, time, and memory, and asks if it's possible to find resolution in a country that refuses it for anyone.
Crossing the Line by Yohan Aloysius is a musical allegory which Yohan began writing in 2006 as a reaction to the horrors of the Sri Lankan conflict. The idea for the script had come to him while working on post-tsunami humanitarian projects in various uncleared areas and border villages in the north of Sri Lanka. His research included transcriptions of interviews with child soldiers. The fictional border village of Crossing the Line is intentionally painted in broad strokes with larger-than-life characters that are intended to be of symbolic nature.
Father Cabra's Recipe for Love Cake by Ramya Jirasingha. In a tropical island fort built by a colonial trading company in the 18th century, a woman makes a cake as sweet as wild honey and as unforgettable as a great love. Yet, the events that have made her life in the fort possible are violent and unforgiving. During an insurgency, the past and the present interweave when a fugitive enters the woman's house.
Footnotes of a Protest by Telakon M. Some days are best forgotten and others worth remembering forever. 2022 was one such year, and while the poetry that flows through these pages attempts to capture the emotions of living through upheaval, it is a timeline of events stamped on the edge of each page that binds us to the realities we experienced. This collection that traces those events, even as it echoes the reactions, is an imperfect attempt to commit yesterday to memory before it is relegated to less than a footnote of a strangely perfect tomorrow.
Jnanam by Selvi Satchidanandam is a biography cum memoir, first crafted primarily to integrate the belief and to fill the void a matriarch's departure from this world left behind. The book charts the stories of 5 generations of women belonging to one family in Jaffna, and it was inspired by love, empathy, and trust that they handed down along the way. The spiritual thread that runs through the book is innocuous, subtle, and inaudible, but profuse in its presence and draws a correlation between wisdom, health, spirituality, and healing, which is slowly finding traction in today's world.
Students and Rebels by Vihanga Ferreira. This book is set in the months leading to the height of Sri Lanka's political emergency in 1988 and 1989. It narrates how uncertainty and violence reached 2 villages in Kandy, and the ways in which lives of ordinary people were caught in the crossfire. The story unfolds through 5 narratives told in hindsight by men and women who turned the clock back by 30 years to return to sites of trauma.
Thomia by Richard Simon, a detailed history of St. Thomas's College for general as well as specialist readers. Thomia focuses on the role of this elite boys' school in the growth and development of modern Lanka. The story commences with the beginnings of public education in British Ceylon circa 1801 and ends with the sesquicentennial of the college 200 years later. Intensively researched at home and abroad, it's unique in content and perspective and will appeal to anyone with an interest in Lanka's history and social development.
When Ghosts Die by Lal Medawate. When determined death spirits launch an agitation called Maragalaya to oust dead politicians from the nation's most exclusive cemetery and earn a teapot and an extraordinarily ordinary woman called Mandara gain unexpected significance. The urn predictably carries ashes hijacked from the dead, And the teapot? Shh, things that should not be uttered. The nation's patriotic politicians must stop this urn from reaching Pidrutalagala. Will they? And the teapot must be snatched from Mandara now. Can they? Perhaps. Perhaps. Perhaps.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nisreen and Nafisa. And now, before we move on to the second part of today's program, we have Carmeline, who has just joined us, and I think she deserves a little bit of an applause, right, for making through the traffic in the rain. She's our representative from the John Keels Foundation, and she's also the CSR, the head, rather, of the CSR of the foundation. So Carmeline, the stage is all yours.
Good evening, and my sincere apologies for the delayed entrance, not being fashionably late, but had a domestic emergency. Very happy to be here, to the co-chairs of the Gratiaen Trust and the trustees, country director of the British Council, all invitees, guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to represent John Keels Foundation and also celebrate the 5th anniversary of our partnership with the Gratiaen Trust, which has been going on continuously since 2009. As the CSR entity of the John Keels Group, we operate under the vision of empowering the nation for tomorrow, and we do so under 6 CSR pillars, one of which is arts and culture. And under the arts and culture pillar, we really try to safeguard and promote Sri Lanka's arts and culture, which is obvious from that name itself. But beyond that, what we seek to do is really to promote social cohesion among the various individuals and entities of Sri Lanka, and promote this kind of cohesion and well-being through the medium of artistic and creative expression, and thereby boost creative economies. We have been pleasurably engaged in long conversations with the British Council, as well as various arts bodies, including the Gratiaen Trust, in this regard. And we see an increasing role for corporates, as well as all entities and individuals in Sri Lanka, to work together in promoting this aspect of social dialogue, mutual understanding, and goodwill between the various individuals, and whether it's ethnic or religious or cultural, diverse groups in Sri Lanka. So in that context, we are very happy as John Keels to partner various organizations in the sphere of arts and culture. And we have been doing this consciously over the last 35 years, starting with Kalapola, and taking on a series of partnerships over the years with the bodies that are involved in this landscape of arts and culture. And we are delighted to have this partnership with the Gratiaen Trust, which uniquely fosters the English creative writing in Sri Lanka, and has been doing it for the last 30 years. And we are obviously happy to work with them over the long term in developing this aspect of the arts. Today I'm happy to join you for the shortlist event. I also had a peek of the long listers in being late, so I'm glad to see the quality of writers and works that have been showcased, and look forward to the announcement of the shortlist, and beyond that, the Gratiaen Prize itself going forward. On behalf of John Case Foundation, I would like to congratulate all the long listers and the shortlisters, and also take this opportunity to appreciate the efforts of the Gratiaen Trust, the co-chairs, the trustees, and the teams that work with them in successfully driving the various initiatives of the Gratiaen Trust. And also acknowledge the effort, obviously the very difficult effort that has been and will be played by the judges in going forward with the Gratiaen Prize. So thank you, and wish all of you a very enjoyable evening, and looking forward to personally being in contact with you after the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmeline. And now we move on to the second part of our program, the shortlist announcement. But before we learn about who has made it, or rather who has made it onto the list, let's get to know our jury panel for this year's prize. The composition of the panel reflects the Gratiaen Prize's long-standing tradition of representing three perspectives: a creative writer, an informed general reader, and an academic. Dr. Anthony Joseph is the chair of this year's jury. He is a celebrated British poet, novelist, academic, and musician. His 2022 collection, Sonnets for Albert, won the T.S. Eliot Prize for Poetry in 2022.
Hi, my name is Anthony Joseph, and I'm the chair of the judges for this year's Gratiaen Prize. I want to say, first of all, that it's an absolute honor to be asked to judge this prize. I realize that this is one of the preeminent literary prizes in Sri Lanka, and that it will change lives, and that's a huge responsibility to be given, and I'm grateful for this. I'm a Trinidadian. I'm from Trinidad in the Caribbean, so I'm an islander as well. So there's a lot of affinity that I have seen in the writing of the entries that I've read from Sri Lankan novelists, Sri Lankan poets, memoirists, and we're all grappling with this thing, this universal concern of how to be human, and how to best represent humanity. And there's a lot of that in the work that has been presented here. Also, it's been a real pleasure to learn about Sri Lankan history, culture, and food, smells. I feel like I've already visited, even though I've never been, but I'm looking forward to being there in June and to get to know the place. I want to say finally a huge thanks, and that it's been a real absolute pleasure to work alongside my co-judges, Professor Ruvani Ranashina and Angeline Ondajati. So I give thanks to them for being very patient and thorough, and for teaching me a lot about Sri Lankan literature in the process. So I'll see you all in June.
Dr. Ruani Ranasinghe is a prominent figure in global literature. She's a professor at King's College London, and her expertise is in post-colonial literature and theory, especially South Asian diaspora literature.
I'm Ruani Ranasinghe, Professor of Global Literature at King's College in London, and it is my pleasure to be on the 2024 Gratiaen Prize jury with Angeline and Anthony. I was first a member of the Gratiaen Prize jury in 2003 when I was a senior lecturer at the University of Kalani at the Department of English. So it's been fantastic to see the continued success of the Gratiaen Prize in stimulating the interest of a mix of brand new authors alongside some notable familiar faces, and also to observe the broad range of genres submitted, from life writing to novels to plays, as well as some intriguing mixtures of travel writing and historical document within individual entries. Some of our long-listed entries provide insights into our diverse communities. Others revisit recent political conflicts and crises and invite us to broaden our understanding of contemporary Lankan history. Collectively, they tell engaging, illuminating, and well-written stories about post-colonial Sri Lanka, and we hope you will enjoy them as much as we did.
And completing our panel of judges is Angeline Ondanche, who has a rich background in business, academia, and possesses an expansive 3-decade career in tourism and finance. Her passion for literature and diverse experience provides a unique perspective to the panel. And on that note, I'd like to invite Angeline, who is our only judge who is present for the shortlist this evening. So let's warmly welcome Angeline to the panel.
Good evening. I'm Angeline Ondanche, and I'm the informed reader on this year's Gratiaen Prize jury. It's truly an honor and privilege to be a part of a panel with Dr. Anthony Joseph and Dr. Ronnie Ranasinghe, two experts in this field. Over the past few weeks, I've embarked on a rewarding journey reading the 51 submissions from the diverse backgrounds, age groups, and genres. The meetings with my fellow jury members have been rewarding, as there was great chemistry. I must say, I never anticipated how much I would learn from this experience. The memoirs we received have been particularly touching, filling the gaps in the unwritten histories, untold stories of our past, spanning from the colonial period to the contemporary and recent times. Many of the works deal with the painful period of conflict, uprisings, and reflect deeply on a more inclusive future for our country. The level of creativity and writing displayed in these submissions is truly outstanding. It's a testament to the thriving English writing community here in Sri Lanka, despite the many challenges that we face. Now, on behalf of the chair of the jury, Dr. Anthony Joseph, and my fellow jury members, I'm jury member Dr. Ronnie Ranasinghe. I'm honored to present the shortlist for this year's Gratiaen Prize. All our decisions were unanimous. Every single submission was read by all of us and discussed at numerous meetings we held throughout the time zones. So, here we go. Good writing strikes a balance between ambition and technique. Ultimately, though, writing well is about being human. A writer must know things that they must be confident enough to share their observations on, and what it means to exist, to love, and to fear. All of these shortlisted books tell us something. They are grounded in the landscape and colors of Sri Lanka while being centered within literary traditions. And as good writing must, they each stretch at the limits of tradition and form. For a reader not familiar with the complex history and culture of Sri Lanka, they in their own unique way, give us a direct insight into the country and to its voices. So here we go, to start with. In A Passing Return, Pasan Jayasinghe has crafted a moving and engaging narrative of exile, loss, and homecoming. This is a novel which straddles the lines between travelogue and autobiographical fiction. It is simultaneously a guide to the landscape and territory of Sri Lanka and an honest, elegantly written novel in which every sentence seems to be crafted with a poet's sensitivity. Dino will now read an extract from A Passing Return by Pasan Jayasinghe.
I can imagine that rooftop, exactly like on that night, but somehow empty of all people and with no moon in sight. About how being alone can turn easily into loneliness. About how loneliness in Sri Lanka would feel not cold and bracing, but warm and humid, with a grey saltiness wrapping itself around you. And how all you could hear would be the waves crashing over and over in the distance, their usual stupor deafening instead. With each wave, the terror of seeing yourself as someone stranded, hearing in full detail the perfect silence that frames you. Against all that, Maureen is already there then, fully formed as a possibility, a momentous reality within reach. Her eyes bright, her smile flashing on balconies and trains and buses and sweeps of slick, verdant grass. What I've been searching for, but what I need even more perhaps. There is little to debate or negotiate with yourself because you just don't pass up on things like this, on people like these. The kind of person you perceive only because of all the ways you are bereft. As someone suddenly starved, I have come to know this hunger well, and I'm greedy.
Jnana by Selvi Sachithanandan. In the poignant retelling of Nanan's story by her daughter, we are privileged to witness Father Cabra's recipe for love cake by Ramya Kirasinghe. Through the evocative, moving story of Isabella Katharina Silvaria and her passion for love cake and her home, Ramya Jirasinghe's ambitious, tightly structured and perceptive novel traces intriguing layers of Lankan history, especially the role of African traders. Notable for its attention to sensory detail, Father Cabra's recipe for love cake explores ideas of home, belonging, and place. Next we will have a reading from Father Cabra's recipe for love by Purnima.
She gazed up at him for a brief moment before turning her attention back to the cooking pot. She ladled the curry into a large porcelain bowl and carried it over to the table. She then went back to the hearth. The boy stood up, walked over to a rack with plates and brought 3 to the table. He laid the plates and looked at his mother. She carried a larger bowl, steaming with white rice, to the table and put it down with a soft thud. "Eat," she said to the child. "He will be okay. He can't do anything to us. The men are outside." The child reached for the rice. The woman sat in front of Di Mello and waited until the child had served himself. She heaped 2 spoonfuls of rice onto Di Mello's plate and then topped it with the curry. "I haven't had travellers for some time," she said, serving herself. "When there were travellers, we cooked more than this." She spooned the sauce over her rice. The remaining sauce and the curry she ladled onto the child's plate. A few drops of the curry that could not be spooned out of the bowl pooled around a long stick of cinnamon at the bottom of the bowl. DeMello spoke softly. "I'm sorry. I thought this would be like other houses with more people. This has not been like other houses for a long time. Not after his father came to me. Not after the company killed him and other African traders." The child looked at the mother, his face drawn with concern. She saw his look and straightened herself. "We are better than other houses," she said, her voice kinder. "Mama, that's what Papa said, remember? Mama, remember?" The woman looked at DeMello. And he knew then that with this woman, he would be able to spend the rest of his days without having to harbor a lie or a secret from the world about himself. He looked at the child and said, "Yes, much better." The child beamed. "So much better," DeMello said again and looked at the woman. "I would never leave."
So surprise, surprise, the next book is Jnanam by Selvi Sachitanandan. In the poignant retelling of Jnanam's story by her daughter, we are privileged to witness the wisdom and compassion of an extraordinary centenarian. Jnanam's life narrative serves as a window into the profound challenges faced by post-colonial Jaffna, where a once thriving community is gradually dismantled through the turmoil of divisive politics. Through her experiences, we come to understand the tragic loss suffered by a vibrant community whose cultural richness and collective memory remains integral to a fabric of a nation torn asunder. Mokshini will now read an extract from Jnanam by Selvi Sachitanandan.
On the way back, in the car, she sat next to this strange man whom she had never seen nor met before and wondered what kind of life was going to pan out with this union. The question in her mind was, will I be able to manage this relationship? She started off speaking to him by referring to the letter he wrote to Periaka. That letter was unnecessary, she said. By writing an enraged letter like that, you only demeaned yourself as a man not being in control of yourself. It was not them that lost out by receiving that letter. It was you who lost out by writing it. She paused. She was nervous. It was the first real connection she was making through this communication. She was not sure which way it would go. There was an uncomfortable moment. Then the groom turned halfway around towards her and gave a shy, guileless smile and said, "Yes, you are right. I should not have written that letter, and I will apologize to your sister when I see her next." From this response, Jnanam was sure, yes, this will work. I will be able to manage this relationship. For her, it was as if they were continuing a conversation they had had earlier. It made her feel as though this was not just a beginning,
but a continuation of a relationship that had been before. Something fell into place in Yanam's heart. The rest of the drive to Thinnaveli was a walk in the park. That night, they just plonked into bed in the master bedroom at Thinnaveli, which was sparsely decorated for them. It was already quite late, and the light from the kerosene lanterns did not throw much light in the room. Exhausted from the day's momentous events, they both fell asleep.
Our fourth shortlist is Students and Rebels by Vihanga Ferreira. In this book, Vihanga Ferreira gives us an incisive and moving account of a politically sensitive and challenging event in the history of modern Sri Lanka. With an ingenious use of structure and polyvocality, Ferreira writes convincingly with the clarity and narrative engagement of a storyteller and with the richness of historical detail. Rehan will now read an extract from Students and Rebels.
Change location. Sounds strategic. Somyaya repeated slowly, but from the way his chin dropped and brows narrowed, I knew that he was staring at an abyss. Where to and how? Again he looked around in his characteristic way. All right, comrades, he said, we will do something. Let's take the decision and split. It is also getting dark, better not be out about at night. The decision was taken and agreed on. We would change locations and await contact from Sunilaya. Sunilaya will go back along the chain of coordinates and seek orders from up when everything was safe. It was now beginning to get dark, but we still didn't move. Something kept us loitering at Somyaya's. The idea that we should get to some safe point before it was dark, the very dark that had so far been our safety rug, our court of invisibility, broke my nerves. Wasn't it a sign that the game had turned by half a circle? We hung around the small veranda, not saying much, more as if in our subconscious, we knew that the three of us wouldn't possibly ever meet again.
So the final work in our shortlist is When Ghosts Die by Lal Medavattagedara. This is a vibrant, action-packed satire set in the tumultuous world of the 2022's Aragalaya. Narrated by a spirited ghost activist, the story unfolds through a motley crew of characters, including the living, the deceased, and even inanimate objects that defy conventional categorization. In a society where dissent is ruthlessly suppressed, the creative and resilient voices that emerge shatter the barriers imposed by corruption and oppression. Mokshini will now read an extract from When Ghosts Die.
Please don't rush into hard conclusions. I was not an agitator of the Maragalaya, but just a keen observer who happened to have an unusual method of observation, though. I am not a politician or a spy. I am not even an authentic resident of the Sunrise Mountain Cemetery in the first place. When I died, I was forcibly buried here in this spectacular, spacious and aesthetically pleasant grave that belonged to this dentist called Dr. James Scratchley, who had died over 80 years ago. I am not third class, as the posh lady said. I am educated and middle class. When alive, I was never a patriotic woman who produced 5 healthy children and did housewifing for a virile husband with a bulging stomach, high blood sugar and cholesterol. I was just your ordinary girl next door. Slightly attractive though. As introverted as a sloth bear, a loner like a kadrumurunga flower, very bookish like a bookworm, and as untalkative as a typist clerk in a shipping warehouse. I passionately collected teapots and at the time of my death possessed 854 teapots. Antique and foreign, modern and postmodern, ceramic and brass, arty and dull. My lifelong obsession with teapots might have granted me an instinct to sniff out teapots, the potential reason that could have made me discover a period ceramic teapot hidden in a deliberately carved out cavity